On this episode of Street Rag Garage, getting Goose, our 1972 roadkill Maverick, ready to go to Cleetus and Cars 2023. So I'm in Goose. I just brought him back from storage, and we need to drive it around and see how things are doing. The last time we had Goose out, it seemed like the transmission was just not shifting right. It had a shift flare. I can't remember if that was in between 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, and he was taking a long time to shift through gears. So let's take him out and refresh our memory and try to figure out what we need to do to get this transmission to shift, so we can take it to Cleetus and Cars and do a little racing without burning out the clutches. Okay, I'm at a dead stop right now, so let's take off and run through the gears here and see what old Goose has to say for himself. All right, well, that was a quick shift. First to second, no problems. Holding long, second. It held long, second to third, but it shifted okay, which is weird because I distinctly remember a shift flare. So maybe we need to accelerate a little bit harder to get that up, or maybe we need to warm up the transmission. We just took off, so transmission flow's not warmed up. Maybe that's our issue. So let's drive it a little bit and try it again. Okay, next stop sign, and let's get on it a little bit harder and see what happens. A little bit of flare. There it goes, 2 to 3. That's where the shift flare is. Right then. Okay, one more time just to verify. Give it a little juice. Oh yeah, second and third, long shift flare. So that's what it is. So we're headed back to the house right now. We need to adjust the transmission, the bands in the transmission. The C4 transmission has adjustments on it that you can externally tighten the bands that go clamp around the drums. So hopefully that will eliminate our shift flare. And then we'll adjust that. We'll take it back out again and see if that gets rid of it. If not, we're gonna have to get another transmission or have this one rebuilt in like 3 weeks. We're back, we've got the car jacked up, and now we are going to adjust the bands in the transmission. Hopefully that's gonna resolve our slipping problem. So you might be asking yourself, how do I adjust my bands on my C4 transmission? Well, you just jack it up, use your Harbor Freight jack stands, crawl under it, and where is it at? See this right here? This, can you see it? There's a little nut and a bolt. I don't know how well you can see that because I can't see the camera, and there's a line in the way, but this is on the rear passenger side of the vehicle, right next to the modulator valve. There's a lock nut. You loosen up that lock nut, and what you do is you run this all the way back in until it's nice and snug. And let's see, what they say the rear one was. The rear one is 1, 2, 3 turns out. Lock it back down. Now let's look at the front one. So the front one is right there by the shifter linkage on the driver's side towards the front, closer to the bell housing. That one should be, it varies because I've watched 3 different videos on it and got 3 different answers. First guy was 1 1/4 turn. Next guy was 1 1/2 turns. And the last guy, of course, was 1 3/4 turns. So, yep. I think on this application we're going to go 1 1/4 because we're going to be hitting it with nitrous. So maybe a little bit tighter on that band. All done adjusting the bands. The one in the back is supposed to be 3. I screwed it in. It took about 3.5 turns to get it screwed in. So then we backed it off at 3 turns. Now the front band is only supposed to be 1 1/4 to 1 3/4, depending on who you ask. It was 3.5 turns out. So I don't know if we wore that much clutch material off, or I believe this transmission has been rebuilt from the looks of it. Did somebody set both at 3-ish and messed up somewhere that way? Either way, backed it off 1 1/4 turns. Now let's jump in here and hope that solves our problem. Let's go ahead and check the transmission fluid while Goose warms up here a little bit. Make sure we're good in that department. Alright, that looks good, so we're safe. Transmission fluid looks good, doesn't really look burnt. So let's go for a test drive. All right, here we go. Let's give it a little something. And now she's not shifting. Let's pull over here real quick. Make sure we're in drive. Give it a good takeoff. There she goes. There she goes. Didn't flare, but now it seems to be holding on a little bit longer, just in drive. So, of course, we don't have our kickdown linkage hooked up either. So that may be the issue, but 1-2 shift was good. It just held long. 2-3 shift was good as well. So let's give it another try at this stop sign and see what she's like. Now you can adjust the shift points at the modulator valve as well. So that may be something we need to do. Well, let's get into it a little bit here. Oops, bring right to second gear when I turn the corner. So let's stop again. All right, try that again. First gear. Second gear. Third gear. She's all right. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's test her out one more time. See how she does. And then we need some gas. Okie dokie. Give her all she's got this time. Whoops. First, second, third. Perfect. I think that solved our problem. Oh, Goose is hitting the shift points right where they should be, so I should hook up the kickdown cable, and that might resolve our late shifting problem when we are just cruising down the road. I think we should try an easy shift. Let's just drive normal. Oh, 1, 2. It shifted early that time. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, it shifted early, but I barely came off the line on that one. I think we're all right. Band adjustment. I just wish I knew if somebody messed up that band adjustment or if we use that much clutch material. My guess is somebody rebuilt the transmission and did not adjust the band properly. Let's go with that one. Okay, so I'm just going to cruise the car around, bring everything up to temperature, get everything nice and warm, make sure there's no leaks or anything, but I do have a stall converter I would like to put in this, and I do have some gears that I would like to put in it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that done before Cleetus and Cars, but we should give it a try. I also have an O2 sensor that we should put in, and we need to adjust the timing properly. We got a list of stuff to do already. Oh well. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy the ride. Another thing I have some concerns about is there's some slop in the steering, probably about, I don't know, what, 1.5 to 2 inches? It's a little bit more than I want. I mean, it feels pretty good when you're going down the drag strip. Everything's nice and smooth, but when you're on the road and there's some dips and grooves, it has a tendency to weave and bob a little bit. So this is a manual gearbox, and there is some adjustment on that as well. So let's get back to the house and see if we can't adjust up on that as well, since we're in the adjusting mood. All right, made it back to the house. So while I was driving, I was thinking the pressure gauge, the regulator, fuel pressure regulator, I had some problems with it when we went down to Tennessee to pick up the ramp truck, and it was bypassing, and we had fuel coming out of the carburetor. So this, I wanted to replace that. Right now it's showing that I have 12 pounds of fuel pressure. I mean, we should only have 7 to begin with, but the pump's not even running, and that should have backed off. The gauge I have over there is showing 0 pounds, so we definitely have a problem with this pressure regulator, and probably this gauge or whatever. But cheap imported regulators, don't use them. They're just going to cause you problems. Plus we need to get rid of some of these fittings and put some AN lines on and just make it look a little bit nicer. And you probably need to wrap up this wire and fix that oil leak that's coming out of that distributor. We got a bad distributor gasket there. Yep, we got our work cut out for us, so we better get busy. So next up, we're going to go ahead and tighten up the steering gearbox. The steering gearbox on a Maverick is located a little bit further back. It's actually way down there by the almost underneath of the brake master cylinder there. You can see it right way down there. So let me get this camera angled in and we can see how much play we have. Now, if you've never done this before, the steering gearbox is adjusted by kind of like the transmission bands. We have a locking nut here and a screw here. So I've already backed this out. All I have to do is turn this in and it'll tighten up our steering. You don't want to give this a whole bunch of turns because it'll be too tight on the worm gear that's inside, and mess everything up. So I'm just going to turn this about 1/4 at a time until we got enough. I mean, if we have to go more than 1/2 inch or probably about a half turn, it's probably time for a new gearbox. You shouldn't have to turn this very much. So if I get a full turn out of it and it's still not really tight, probably just go ahead and replace it. But let me tighten this up and see what we get. Okay, I got the screwdriver down there. Again, we got another tight spot, but I'm going to try to show this as best as I can. Spark plug wire's in the way, but you can see we got the screwdriver on it. So I'm going to give it, you know what, it's really sloppy. I'm going to go ahead and give it a half a turn. I mean, it's super sloppy. So that's like 3/4 of a turn, and my screwdriver slipped off of there. It's really hard to get this guy in there. Okay, that's 1/2 a turn right there. Now let's try it and see what we have. Okay, pay attention to that rag joint back there, and I'm going to go ahead and move the steering wheel. So from here to here, back and forth, that's me moving the steering wheel, and the wheels are not moving at all. So what's that, like 3 inches? Man, maybe even more than that. That's a lot, maybe 4 inches of play on the steering wheel side of it. That is a full turn in, and we still got a lot of slop. So yeah, we pretty much need a new steering gearbox. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the gearbox, so we'll just have to go ahead and put that on the list of things to get in the future. But it took us from about 6 inches of play probably down to 4 inches of play. Good enough to go straightish down the drag strip at about 100 miles an hour. I mean, I've taken it on the interstate and may have exceeded the speed limit in that range, but it did fine. So you just got to be careful. If you catch a groove, it'll move you over a little bit, but this will help out. It'll be good enough for the track. And no, it's not any of the suspension components. Those were already checked. All the suspension components are good. The idler, the pitman arm, all the tie rod ends, everything's good on that department. So it's definitely the gearbox. We'll just have to replace it later. Well, I've been spending some time cleaning out the garage here. It doesn't look like it's clean, but believe me, it's a lot better than what it was. So we're going to go ahead and pull the Maverick inside and finish up some of the hard work. We're gonna have to pull that transmission, slide that converter in, and you know, do a little plumbing on the regulator, replace the regulator, put some good fittings on, fix the fuel lines, and see what else needs to be done. I'd really like to change the gear set. I'm not sure if that's going to get done. It depends on how long it takes us to wrap up the other stuff. I don't want to take everything apart and then not be able to put it back together when it's time to go to the event. Got Goose into the garage and immediately turned it into a table. So this is what happens anytime a car comes into this garage. It becomes a table. But I was just looking for my AN fittings, some dash 6s, which I have a bunch of dash 10s. I don't see any 6s. So I had to pull all my boxes off the shelf because I am not organized, and go through and find some of the stuff. So hopefully I can go get some boxes and put that stuff back in where it belongs. I found my LS wiring harness. That's a plus. But I was just looking for this regulator too, and I didn't realize that I ordered a pump and a regulator at the same time, and they both come in the same box. So I was just looking for this by itself. And this is what we need. This is for another project, but we will use this regulator, this Holley regulator. Now, just because it's in a Holley box and has a Holley name on it, doesn't mean it wasn't outsourced, because it looks a lot like that one, and it is not very heavy. So I am not holding out a whole lot of, not having a lot of high expectations for this regulator. But we're going to try it. It's definitely got to be better than this. Even if it just lasts us through the event, we should be fine. So, does it even have a place to put a... No, it doesn't have a place to screw into the body for a fuel pressure gauge on it. But we got that one over there, so we'll be good. Okay, I need some dash 6 fittings. So I'm going to have to run to the store and get a couple of those and a block off. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll be back with some parts. Back with parts. So we are going from this cheap knockoff foreign made with the braided lines, frayed, and hose clamps to still a cheap, well, it's actually Holley, but I think this is Holley, but still made in China. I'm pretty sure this is really a lightweight unit, but it'll do us for now. But the good part is we have these Earl's fittings. These come from a nice little shop here in Indianapolis, Earl's of Indy, So it's over there on Gasoline Alley. If you need some good stuff, go there. These are fantastic. These nylon covered with the, it's got the metal in there and then the rubber, but this is gonna save the ends of my fingers. Every time I put these on, I get stuck, and it just turns into a big gnarly mess. And plus this regulator, it doesn't work. The gauge, at least the gauge doesn't work either, but the regulator stopped working. It's showing 9 pounds, 7 pounds. Yeah, 7 pounds, so that's right where it should be, right? But yeah, it's stuck. So we're getting rid of this. We're getting rid of the brass fittings from where? Home Depot. And we're putting in real 90-degree bins on there. So that's a plus. Yeah, let's get our regulator on there and get plumbed up. So almost instantly, I run into a snag. I mounted the bracket here, getting it ready to take the regulator, which I'll mount that way. All I have to do is put the 2 screws in. They go right here in the middle. Can you see inside? There's no threads. You can't thread it in because it's not threaded. So yeah, that means we get to use our tap kit today. But you would think when you buy a regulator and it comes with a bracket and it comes with the screws, that the holes would be threaded in order for you to put them together. But apparently this is a do-it-yourself kit. So definitely not a true Holley product. I'm pretty sure their quality assurance department is better than this. So, but you get what you pay for. This was cheap, and I'm gonna fix it now. And just like that, it's all done and ready to go. I mean, it's really easy to do, but just a little annoying, but no big deal. And here we have our new regulator and our new much more attractive lines. I really like to change this out already. I already don't like this regulator. I'm sure it's going to give us problems, but hopefully it'll do the job for Cleetus and cars, and then we can fool with it again later. So nothing left to do but check and see what kind of fuel pressure we're getting. Our gauge is over there, so let's just crank the key on real quick and see what we got. Looks like, what's that say? Is that 7 or 8? That's 8. That's 8. So we just need to crank it back just a little bit. I already loosened the nut, so we're gonna just turn it in a hair. Oh, that's the wrong way. We're gonna turn it out a hair. Okay, shut the key off. I'll the pressure back off a little bit. Turn the key back on. Okay, there we go. That is 7, just a touch over 7. And 7 is where we want to be. I'm going to put it a touch over 7, just because when we accelerate, we're going to lose a little bit of pressure. So, plus we're running the nitrous, so we need just a hair more. Well, that's going to wrap up this part on it. Now let's see what else we need to do to get this ready. Just ignore this. This is a mess. Okay, fine. I went ahead and cleaned it up. How's that? Better? I mean, that I'm not going to get cleaned up, or I don't want to get cleaned up. I guess I could put some singles over those, but I mean, at least I got this mess cleaned up, and I repacked that side over there as well. So that's done. That's done. I still need to do way back there, but we got other things that need to get done. So yeah, I got a couple wires here. Maybe I'll clean up some of this right down here as well, and then we need to move on and get that transmission dropped, get the converter in. We don't need to drop the transmission, we just need to slide it back, put the converter in, and then think about doing the gears on the rear end, which we may not get to, but at least get this converter in. So another thing that I want to do is hook up this AFR gauge right here, so we can monitor what our air fuel ratio is. So in order to do that, we're going to have to hook up this O2 sensor. In order to do that, we are going to have to put in this bung in the exhaust. Now in order to do that, we are going to have to drill a hole in the pipe. So in order to drill a hole in the pipe, we need the pipe up here so we can drill a hole in it. I'm going to go down and probably disconnect the exhaust and pull it out from underneath the car. It's going to be a whole lot easier to do it that way. Okay, so I'm underneath the car. This is our exhaust pipe, and I've already unhooked from there. Can you see that right there from the header? So on both sides, so that part's done. Now we got the emergency brake cable in the way, and we'll look at this exhaust in the back. So back here we have the full exhaust system on this car that runs all the way around underneath the over the rear end and out the back there. Now that is a lot of twists and turns that we have going on there. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it off. I mean, they welded everything to it. This looks like, I don't know how well you can see that, but that's really stepped down. That looks like a 2.5 inch exhaust into probably a 2-inch pipe, and they just filled it with a weld there. So with all that, I think we got a lot of restrictions there. If we just cut it off here and put some dumps on it right before the rear axle here, I think we'll be a lot better off, and we won't have as many exhaust restrictions there. Maybe it'll flow a little bit better. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off and then drop this exhaust pipe out, and we'll get to drilling that O2 sensor in. Now I'm also dropping that exhaust out so we can slide the transmission back a little bit easier and install our, I think it's a 32 to 3500-ish converter. I bought this like a year and a half ago and never got it installed. I got lazy. So we're going to go ahead and slide this up in there and get us a little bit better launch off the line, and then maybe we can break that 8-inch rear end. Exhaust out, and just look at this garbage. So yeah, can you see inside of that? There we go. See the pipe slid over the collector there, and see what that's going to do is cause, hold on. Okay, there's all the exhaust out from underneath of it. Look at this garbage here. The pipe is just sort of slid in and over this collector extension right here. I mean, that's it's going to cause a little bit of turbulence in there. You can see that one. Can you see that one? How boogered up that is. It's garbage. So, and then this outer pipe, I don't know how many layers is in here. That's one, that's another layer. So this, it's like a 2-piece pipe. How does that even work? I don't know. Small pipe slid into a bigger pipe, welded the gaps, going into a smaller pipe, going into a bigger pipe, again welding the gaps, smaller pipe going into a bigger muffler, welding the gaps, and then coming out. Look at all of that slide. Can you see that? Small pipe, really small pipe, whole bunch of weld. I mean, I think there's more material welding than it's worth to put the right pipe on. But look how small that diameter is coming out, how big that is. And that's, what's that, like an inch, and is that even an inch and 3/8 coming out of a 2.5 inch? This is this definitely roadkilled up, so we're just gonna slice behind here, at least open up this restriction. We can't do a whole lot about that right now, but we'll go back and fix that later. Definitely a little bit of gains to be made here just by opening this up. Then we'll put some down pipe on it, dump it right before the rear axle. So, oh, O2 sensor. So we got to get the O2 sensor. Did my mark. Hopefully my mark didn't come off of here. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. It's on that pipe. So we'll put an O2 sensor in. That's not my mark, right? Is it? I don't know. Anyway, my mark is around here somewhere. I thought it was on this one. I'll find it. We'll weld it in. Okay, got the exhaust out, and just look at this mess. Can you see the pipe sliding inside of the pipe and causing all sorts of turbulence when it blows through there? And then we got, yeah, see, they just cut off a flange and booger welded it like bad on there. That's bad. Then it goes to a smaller pipe, it goes into a bigger pipe, and they just filled it with weld. Smaller pipe going into bigger pipe, filled it with weld. Smaller pipe going into a bigger muffler, weld. Then the same small pipe they used on the other end, slammed it into here and super weld. Look at all of that. That is ridiculous. This is like an inch and 3/8 or an inch and 3/4 or something, slid into a 2.5 inch pipe. That's absurd. That's crazy. I'm just gonna come in here and just cut back here, or maybe I can cut now. How far does that go in? Didn't go in very far. I like to keep this exhaust hanger. Maybe cut there, just so open that up. Cut back here. Keep the exhaust hanger so it'll be sturdy, and that'll cut back on some of that restriction, but not up here. We'll fix that, all of that later. And I made a mark here for our O2 sensor, so we'll go ahead and drill in there and drop that in, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, just dropped the transmission down, pulled out the old torque converter right here. You can tell it's a good 2 inches bigger than this one, so this is definitely like I think a 32, 35. I just can't remember, but I'm gonna go ahead and fill this up with transmission fluid here, good old type F. And then we'll slide it back into the transmission and get it loaded into the car and see what kind of difference that makes. Well, I just went ahead and pulled the transmission out. I was trying to pull it back and just slide the converter in, but it was kind of tight and kept lowering it down. It's like, I'll just take it out. So it looks like this has been rebuilt. It's been spray painted gray. Everything in here looks nice and new. Even the seal looks brand new. So probably rebuilt this transmission. And while I have it out, you can see these band adjustments a little bit better right here. Remember, we adjusted these. It's been a whole lot easier to do it with it out, but unloosen this nut, turn this one in. I believe this was the side that was 1.5 about. This one, the other one's right back here, so that was 3 turns. So we can double check that a little bit later after everything else, but that's your shift, that's your kick down right there. Everything is pretty simple on these transmissions, so it's no big deal to get these taken apart and put back in. And I've been sitting here filling this stall converter up. These take a little time. I want to put at least a quart in here, just fill them up, wait for them to gurgle down there a little bit. So I've just been putting it in, doing some other stuff, coming back and putting in some more. So we're almost done here. I'm going to go ahead and shove this stall converter into the transmission, and then we'll slide it back under the car and start getting things bolted back up. Got the converter pretty well loaded up. Got the rest of that quart in there. So I'm just going to slip the stall converter in here. Just being careful not to damage the seal. That's one. Was that one or two clicks? Just turn her around. I'm looking for about 3 clicks on that. Well, it looks like we have a problem. The shaft is supposed to engage the inner teeth there, and this shaft is bigger than that the hole that it's supposed to go into. So yeah, I mean, it goes into this stall converter just fine, but not so much here. So we ordered the wrong stall converter. I managed to look up the numbers off of the converter, and it's a Boss Hog brand. I remember that, but it says right here it is a 24 spline, not a 26 spline. So yep, I messed up there. Wasn't anybody else's fault but my own. So just have a few days to find a 26 spline converter, or we're gonna have to throw the old converter back in there and just roll with it. Okay, it looks like we are out of luck on a stall converter right now. I called the local speed shop and they don't have any, so I'm going to check around to see if there's any other speed shops around that I don't know about. But we're going to go ahead and drill the hole for the O2 sensor so we can run the wideband. We're going to need that, so let's do that while we wait for our stall converter, or lack thereof. So before I pulled this pipe out, I made a little mark right there on the pipe to where we wanted to drill our O2 sensors. So I'm just going to punch there, do a pilot hole, and then we're going to use our step bit to open up the hole. And then I'm not good at welding. I really don't know how, so I'm going to try to weld this bung in place, so hopefully it all goes well. Alright, so I'm just going to make a little dent here so we can drill our pilot hole. There we go. And then we can just grab our step bit here, toss it in, and get us a good hole drilled. Better grab the bung and see how big we need it. Definitely bigger than that though. Let's see what we got. Okay, here's our bung right here. What do you think size that is? About 3/8. So I'm just going to slide this over. So probably all the way to the last step bit is where we want to go on that. So that's the next to the last one. We'll just double checking, make sure it don't go too far. Alright, that's all the way. And still just a hair too small. It's about the exact size of the inner diameter. But yeah, we're going to have to hog that out a little bit. Maybe we should just get a bigger step bit. Okay, we got a bigger step bit. This small one only goes up to 3/4. This one goes up to 1 3/8 inches, so that should be more than enough. So we'll probably run it up to, say, 11/16 and try it there. Where's it at right now? Yeah, one more step should do it, and then we'll try to insert it and see how that goes. So just going to do this one step at a time, not to overdo things again. Alright. Yeah, almost just a touch more. Try it there. That ought to go. I should just be able to clean up the sides of this right here. Got some burrs on it. I think that's the only thing that's keeping it from going in. And it should slip right in there. We gotta dump all our debris out the other end though. And we need some clean pipe in order to weld to as well. So just get everything cleaned up real nice here. That's nice and clean there. So let's just try to squeeze this in here. I'd rather have it a little bit tight than a little bit loose. I think we might be able to just knock that in with our hammer here. There she goes. That's a nice tight fit, so just have to take your time, make sure you get the right size hole. You can see a little bit of the gap here. That's because this is round pipe and a flat surface, so that's okay. We'll just fill it there, plus it extends into the pipe anyway, so there's not going to be any air pocket there. I mean, that's super tight. It's almost good enough to use just like that. So with my bad welding skills, it should work rather nicely. Okay, this is a brand new machine from Harbor Freight, the green one, titanium. I'm sure you've seen it. And this is my brand new welding helmet. And I haven't done this for a very, very long time, so I'm not sure if I want to show you this after I'm done, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. Wow, that's not good. Yeah, I don't know if I want to show you this at all. But I'll go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll bring you in and you can laugh at it. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad. I couldn't even show you before I took a grinder to it. I think it took me longer to grind than it actually did the weld. This is it. See, this is a finished product. It's not good. You can tell how much grinding there was. It was just slag monster. I can't weld, so yeah, it's in there. Well, now that the mess is done, let me slip this O2 sensor in here, make sure we didn't get any slag into our threads. So yeah, it screws in just fine. So all we have to do is run our line from our O2 sensor, plug it in after we put everything back up, of course. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the gauge mounted. Then after we get the transmission, if we find a new stall converter, we can put the exhaust back up. So I just sliced off the end of the mufflers here, the tips where they have the small pipe going into the big. You can see just how much restriction is in there, going from I think it's about 2 1/4 to 1 7/8, 1 and something, I don't know. But yeah, that's not good. And you can see all the weld that they had to put in there in order to get those things to seal up. And I thought my welds were bad. This is about the only thing that's worse, but I mean, it's solid. And I guess it worked. Not for what we're doing. Hopefully this will free up a couple extra horsepower for us, getting rid of all those bends and those restrictions there. So I think I'm gonna see if there's some dumps that I can just put on the end of that. If not, we'll just shoot it straight out, no big deal. Okay, the next thing we have to do is mount the AFR gauge and run the wire. The wire just plugs right into the back, no big deal. And then it just plugs right into the O2 sensor. Super simple. And there is our finished product. Nice and tight. Got the wires tucked in. Can't see anything except, you know, all those other wires I did before. We'll tuck that back sometime. Anyway, so all we have to do is plug the other end in after we get the transmission in, after we get the pipes back up, and the O2 sensor in. So one more thing checked off the list. Unable to find a stall converter. That's not going to take a week to get here. Have to order a C4. Nobody carries them anymore, so we are going to put the old stall converter back in and throw the transmission back in and deal with the stall converter next time. Okay, it's the next day. I've been doing some work off camera to try to get this completed. I bolted in the transmission. Now I'm just putting some exhausts together. So I cut off the pipes that go over the rear axle there. So we're going to eliminate that and use these dumps here. Let's see, should just be able to put them there, and that way they're going to dump right at the rear end here. And that'll eliminate some of that craziness of the pipe bends and all that wacky small pipe going into the big pipe junk. So I'm just gonna finish up this, tack this on, get a hanger, and then we should be good to go. And it'll almost be time to start up the car, check the transmission, make sure I got everything put back in right. And while we're under here doing the exhaust, it is time to plug in the O2 sensor in our badly welded bung. That is good enough. So we're just going to screw that in, and here is the other end of the plug. We can just plug that guy in there. Just not going to snap it in right now because we need to make sure we get it tied up out of the way, and it's not going to interfere with anything. Okay, transmission fluid done. I added some water to it. Don't forget, when you go drag racing, you have to get rid of the coolant and put water in the radiator. At least you're supposed to. Hardly anybody does that, especially on test and tune. But we're definitely going to put water in it, and I already have put water in it because I have overheated on the drag strip before. Fortunately not on the main part, but after I got to the end it has bubbled over a couple times. So getting rid of all the coolant, put straight water in. Okay, fingers crossed, let's hope this works. I'm just going to give it a few minutes of run time here in the garage, and let's go ahead and slip it through the gears to make sure everything's working. Reverse, yeah. Drive, yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, it's been a real struggle, but hopefully I am done. Everything is put back together. All that we have to do is jump in, take it down the road, make sure it shifts, and we should be good to go. It's like 5 o'clock on Friday. About 12 hours, I'll be waking up, and we'll be headed over to Cleetus and Cars. So let's hope. Okay, here we go. Goes into gear. Moving out of the garage. All right, let's take this out on the road and see if she hits all her gears. I mean, it should hit all the gears. It did before. We didn't change anything. We just took the transmission out, found we had the wrong part, and threw it right back in. Okay, going out on the road. Now, the one thing I will have to do, I'll have to shift manually because I didn't hook the modulator back up. Let's see, that's first. Oh, that's second. Man, that shifted good. Whoops. What happened? Try that again. First gear. Second gear. Why did I go in the third gear? I'm gonna try that again. Make sure we're shifting properly. That's neutral. There it goes. Still holding long still holding long there. Now the tone of the car sounds totally different. I mean, pointing those dumps right down at the street and opening them up a little bit seems to have made a bit of difference. It sounds a lot more throaty, that's for sure. So, all right, just waiting for traffic to clear here, and let's try a 1, 2, 3 again. Okay, first gear, here we go. Second gear, good. There she goes. Oh, wow. Oh, we're going a little bit faster than we had a curve coming up there than we should have on that road, but seems to be okay. Everything seems good, so I don't think we're gonna fool with it much more. I'm gonna go make a couple quick hits with it, then take her back and get her loaded up on the ramp truck and start packing for tomorrow. Looks like we made it with just hours to spare. Okay, so we got everything wrapped up here. Only thing we need to do is get packed up, loaded on the ramp truck, and head out about 5 a.m. to Cleetus and Cars, because you want to get there early as possible, because there's always a line, even for participants. So the next video you see will be us at Cleetus and Cars. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Street Rat Garage. Until next time.